So are you replacing individual LEDs or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay.
The whole thing.
And this would have cost me thousands of dollars had it not been under warranty.
I'm not sure.
A lot, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to check and see what the actual part price is.
Yeah, right.
No, what is expensive are the hammers, the hammer assemblies.
Right.
Those each are something like $105 each, and there are 88 of them.
Right.
And I know this because
people break them.
That one, the last piano, they broke them, and they wanted me to see how much it would cost to replace all of them. And like, it would cost you $6,000 just for the parts. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, that's.
Now that piece there, what is that?
This is just a protector so that the dust doesn't get in as well as light.
Right, because of the LEDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now,
I am looking at 3 speakers and 4 tweeters, is that right? Or 3 tweeters? Nope, there are 4.
3 speakers. There's another speaker right here.
Oh, that points backwards, yeah.
And
there's a TSR speaker, yeah?
Yeah, somewhere. There usually are, what are those called? The transducers, where they're, at least on the N3, they have these transducers that actually just resonate a surface. So they resonate.
Oh, I
like
see. It's not a full speaker. It just introduces the vibration.
Right, exactly.
Which is
Pretty
what you need for TSR, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's a lot of specialization involved in working on an N2 or an N3 or even an N1 of these. You don't just call up a piano technician and expect them to know what they're doing.
Oh, right? No, they won't. They won't know what they're doing. And really, I was fortunate to have my connection with Yamaha Corporate, and that's how I was able to learn much more quickly. You know, and because I had them on the phone with that N3, you know, I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I don't even know how to get into this thing, you know. And but I have access to all their service manuals and you know, all the tools necessary to you know, do what I need to do. So Okay. So you can see, I mean, the keys aren't short, but they, I think it would be like 5 foot.
So these are more analogous to like a GB1 action.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Not the CFX.
Not the CFX. No, unfortunately not. Where the fun begins. And so there's a key.
Right.
Here's the grayscale that I was talking about.
Where is it?
Right here.
I see. Oh, right. There's a grayscale attached to the bottom of the key.
Correct.
Ah.
That's the key sensor. And then there are flags on the hammers as well.
So it has 2 inputs, and then it puts those together, and based on that, it will try to.
Yes, it couples that information together and comes up with a game plan for key velocity. So I can just.
Now, if I just start putting these in random order, will that mess you up?
Actually, no, they're numbered.
Oh, good,
It
okay.
takes me longer to get them. Each key is individually adjusted, so you can't base
You
one.
can't
key's
just put a
adjustment.
ruler on the back checks and line them up because, yeah, okay.
I mean, a difference of 0.02 of an inch can mean the difference between a hammer checking here and a hammer checking, you know, 1/8 of an inch below. You
Right.
know, it's that sensitive, so you have to.
And when you do a regulation, that's part of what you're adjusting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so on a normal acoustic piano without any sensors, there is a lubricant that's powdered Teflon that is usually used in firearms lubrication, but it's also used in piano lubrication for certain points. But we cannot use it in a Disclobure or a Yamaha sensor system because it's optical and it can get on those key flags. On these key pins, I use a lubricant called McLube 444, which is a dry coating of some kind of silicone type substance that bonds to metal and wood and felt and other things to create a smooth surface that when there's friction involved.
Right.
It's,
Without creating dust or something that can attach to the grayscale.
that's right. You know, this was the most expensive part, you know, but it's pretty crazy. So all these individual, you know, I don't know, conductors, I guess you call them.
And I must imagine that there's some electrostatic discharge concerns there as well. You want to make sure you're not
Exactly.
rubbing a balloon on your head and then fondling it with your fingers.
Yes. Very much so.
I hate it when
Yeah.
that happens.
I know. The key weights are not lead anymore. So they had to, I think because of OSHA or something like that, they actually had to change the material for the key weight. And so they had to find something appropriate. You know. So they're having to use more more weights per key. But and you'll see where these need to be.
Oh, it tells you where the weights
Yep,
need to be.
that was in manufacturing.
Interesting.
Now there is a mechanism for the pedal itself to, you know, to feel more like a damper. On the N3 there was a mechanism. This doesn't feel quite like the N3. There's trap work, but then there's the sensor is like this rotary sensor that has a fork, and here's your lever. So you're pushing on the pedal here and it moves this lever, and this sensor has a fork and there's a little, there's a post sticking out, and as you push the pedal it rotates that sensor.
Right.
And there's where you get the pedaling disparity, the sensitivity and the positioning so that you can get, you know, half damper pedaling and that kind of
Or a quarter or anything
yeah.
up to 127
Right.
subdivisions in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That other speaker points back, and there's a grill here, so that gives you the what do you call it? Just the
It radiates
sound
the sound, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And the TRS, or the tactile response system, probably uses a transducer rather than an actual speaker.
That's right.
And you can adjust it on this and on the N3.
You can. Okay. Yeah.
I have a system called Piano Tech 7. I don't know if you've heard of that. These 15 years ago, these nuts in France who were mathematicians came up with the idea that you could use, you could mathematically model different types of materials that comprise the piano, and then of course the strings and the materials that comprise them, and the weight, and all of that, etc.
Yeah.
And then mathematically produce the sound of that piano. And up until maybe a year ago, at first it was a joke, and then maybe about 5 years ago, it's like, that kind of sounds like a piano. And then last year, they just nailed it. I heard, the sound, and I got goosebumps because I could hear the difference between a 9-foot Hamburg Steinway and a 9-foot New York Steinway.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got the Bechstein, and they just went down the gamut of every piano that you can imagine. They did harpsichords and other instruments, especially historical instruments as well.
That's cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's all done mathematically, and one of the breakthroughs was for version 7, they realized they've been modeling the string vibrating up and down, but it doesn't vibrate up and down.
Oh,
it
right.
vibrates in every direction.
Yeah.
And as soon as they created that interpolation of the vibration of the string, suddenly the sound emerged that a human being could not tell the difference between the sound they're producing and literally somebody sitting at that piano.
That's pretty incredible.
It is, it's neat.
Wow.
And I use that as part of my workflow. So what I'll do is I'll play something on here, and I'll record it in MIDI and that USB drive there.
Okay.
Then I take the USB drive over to my recording studio and I put it into the recording studio. And I'll put it in as MIDI. The other thing I can do is, because of the way they've mathematically modeled the pianos, I have a model of a Steinway D, New York Steinway D, that actually has the extended range like the Börsendorf.
Really?
And so I can add in notes, which I have to do post-production because there's not enough keys here for me to do it.
Right.
But in post-production, I can add that low note like I've done in like a Rachmaninoff B minor prelude and stuff, where it's just boom, and it's got that bell-like sound.
Interesting.
And it just is fun.
That is really interesting.
But now what I'm realizing, and I didn't know this before, is that instead of getting that 1024 subdivisions of resolution on the volume,
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I should be doing that really short cycle one at about 8.1 millimeters to about 2 millimeters before you hit the end of key travel.
Measure that. was the best guy at Yamaha, by far.
It's nice when you work with somebody who knows what they're doing. It saves you a lot of time too.
I'll tell you what.
So what I think I understand is that the module we replaced may or may not have been defective, but in fact there was a mechanical adjustment somewhere that affected. But the curious part is, why does it affect 4 keys spread out across the keyboard?
Because and that would show the random nature of what was causing the issue. So most likely we're talking about 0.1 millimeters of a difference.
Right.
At this point was all it took. However, out at the hammer, it was about a millimeter difference.
Because it gets magnified because of the fact that it's a lever.
Exactly. So where all we needed was an extra 0.1 millimeters, it was showing where a specific trigger in the hammer sensor wasn't actually being reached with pressing the key down, and that's why if you got past a certain quiet point, it would just stop working.
Right.
And so because I was actually having to pull the hammer into the hammer stop rail in that rubber ever so slightly, and but then it would trigger. But if you're playing quietly, it's not going to go that far into the rubber.
Right.
So in lowering the sensor rail here, it alleviated that. But it wasn't doing it on the other ones. But it needs to trigger that to get that soft play.
Right.
You know, whereas
so then the other 3 notes that were spread out across,
it was the same issue. Same issue. So it can be a little bit lower on other notes and be fine. But if on one note it's too high and we're not getting that last trigger,
right,
then that's why those specific notes were doing it.
Right.
And so, yeah. So that's why I lowered the rail.
So
it wasn't doing anything up here.
I mean, I'm sure there's a point at which the rail can be too low.
Yes.
But by and large, it doesn't matter that much because
Right.
you're still going into the rubber.
Right.
Now, is that going to affect how the keys feel?
No.
Right.
No, because this has nothing. This doesn't.
This is
touch
after the actuation of the hammer.
Yeah.
And after the piece moves off the knuckle
That's correct.
and the hammer is free flying.
Yeah. That's.
What's the name? The escapement. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah. After I did that, I just played it and it felt great.
Now, what is that you're putting on now? That rail?
This is just the key up-stop rail so that it just holds keys in place. You know, it's not really necessary, but every piano has it. And really it's more in moving of grand pianos so that the keys don't lift higher and bang into the fall board when it's on its side. And in
I see. Sure, yeah.
That's all. It's not really of any function when the piano is just setting normally somewhere. You know, if the piano has a player system, then it can help in some ways with just keeping the keys down on the balance rail. But even then, it's not. That's not its primary function.
Sure. That speaker that points toward the back is aligned with that mesh hole.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a mode you can actually turn that on and off, or at least on some of the regular digital pianos you can do
Not
that.
bad. And the other thing I can do is there's an aux in on this. So I can pump the sound of the orchestra in, you know, and play along with it on the piano. Another thing I've been doing recently is just kind of fun is, you know, I'll either play an accompaniment and I will record it in MIDI, then I'll play that back while I'm playing the solo. And the fact that, unlike a player piano, this doesn't move the keys helps. Because if the keys were going up and down, you couldn't really play something else on top of it.
Right.
That would be weird. And if it were mechanical in any way,
Right.
that would be a problem as well.
Yes.
But the fact that it's not lends itself to doing things that most serious pianists would want to do. They'd want to practice with an orchestra, and you can do that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they would want to do certain things like that, and that's one of the things that I like about this piano versus something like an N1X, you know, which is you know, fun, but this one is all business.
You know what's interesting? I find doing this kind of work really fun because it's way out of the norm. And like, to me, this isn't a hassle, you know. It's one, it's a learning experience. Two, it's definitely out of my norm for service.
Right.
And that makes the day more interesting and all that. Okay, so let's turn this on. I want you to feel those notes.
You're checking all the notes around that, right? So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you play something on it, see if you feel anything weird.
Feels great. Those notes aren't even a problem anymore. But it is a grand piano action, and typically within 3 to 4 years, you'll notice it'll mainly be the hammer at rest will drop, which means the hammer has more travel to get up to escapement. And if the key travel hasn't changed, which it might drop as well, usually it doesn't so much, then you have too little key travel to get it through escapement. And then if it gets really bad, there is no escapement and the hammers are bobbling off the tops of the jacks.
Right.
And then it's really bad news.
Yeah,
so,
that's the problem.
Yeah, but I don't anticipate it.